I have only drunk one type of wine, and I'm now rather think that maybe the good stuff is being kept from me, but the one I've drunk was absolutely delicious. And I just think there's a pleasure, obviously there's the regenerative story, but there's a real enjoyment of producing something that's been produced with love, that's been produced with love for the countryside. And for me, it's it makes a little guilty pleasure a little less guilty, I guess, and it's also a great pleasure. Candover Brook, obviously, you're not going to change global ecosystems by changing the way that champagne is grown, but in some ways, I think you are. So you have to have things that are often kind of expensive, high-end things that act as symbols for how we can farm in a different way. And I think it's fantastic now that it's not just the beans and the wheat and the vegetables, it's also the grapes that are being grown in this way. And it's a communication device, bringing people to the farm, to the soil, through champagne, people who may not be interested in farming, and spreading the word in that way is a fantastic thing to do. Well, I think there have been people in wine who've been trying to do, as in agriculture, there have always been people who've been passionate about this. But I think what's happening now and what needs to happen is it moves to the mainstream. So if you think about it really literally, farming and most wine production at the moment is a mining exercise. So 40% globally of the food we produce relies on, for the physical structure of the plants, for the nitrogen in the plants, relies on the bodies of animals that were crushed and have lain underground for millions of years to be mined up in the forms of fossil fuels and then turned into artificial fertilizer and pesticides. And so that is literally not sustainable. That will run out. And so we need to turn what has been quite a niche activity of using regenerative, using the sun and the action of the sun on the land, and then the regeneration of that energy through complex ecosystems above and below the soil. We need to use that to produce that nitrogen, and that is a fundamental change, and it is a change that only happens when, at scale, both in terms of the amount of land used for viticulture and for agriculture, and for cotton and other things which we use the land to produce, don't mine. And we won't be sustainable until it's not a mining practice, and that requires using those complex ecosystems to transform sunlight into energy and stuff.